Hello, hello. Ron Callis here with another episode of Automation Unplugged. And today is Friday, March 3rd. This is there's lots of new things going on here. We're actually using a new piece of software, only because the other software we were using for streaming was having some hiccups. And we are on a new day, we're on a new time, and that all is to accommodate my busy schedule and my guests' busy schedule. And David is here behind the scenes telling me that we are live on both platforms. So that means we should be live on LinkedIn and we should be live on YouTube. And hopefully this new software, by the way, I'm using, if you're curious, right now, we're using StreamYard for the first time for this podcast. So historically, we've been using a software called BeLive, B.live, and now we're using StreamYard. So we'll see if technology behaves. But if you are out there and you're watching or you're tuning in, whether you're live or even if you're on replay, don't be shy. Drop into the comments and say hello and let us know where you're coming to us from. That would be awesome. And I've got David and Kim over here on my Slack screen. And if there's shout outs or comments, I know they'll be sure to let me know that, and I'll do my best to read it off. So today we are we're here for show 238, and I have a special guest, a friend, an industry friend. I've actually just gotten to know her over the last year at a few industry events. But all of you out there, particularly if you're on the pro side, the commercial side of the world, you know her very well because she's all over the social medias. She's just a wonderful person. She's a multimedia journalist and content creator. And up until just recently, she was with a company called Audinate, the people that were behind Dante software. And she actually has a big announcement that will not be made here on the show, but will be made soon. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in my guest, Alicia Hendley. And let's see if we can get her into the show. Alicia, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Ron? Thanks for having me.
Alicia, we made it happen.
We did. We did.
Where there's a will, there's a way. And clearly you're a saint because you and I tried to do this before a couple of weeks ago. And something in the interwebs, in my computer or your computer, they just weren't having it.
Yeah,
And
those
you,
bugs. Some bugs in there. It's all good.
they were bugs. But you've used this software before, StreamYard. Is this software that you've done on your own shows, or you've been a guest on shows using this software?
Yeah, absolutely. StreamYard is what we would use to shoot Dante Quick Shots. If anybody's seen Dante Quick Shots when I was at Audinate, the foundation was built on this platform. We actually won an award for Dante Quick Shots with AV Nation. So shout out to my guys, forever an Audinator, even though I'm no longer at that company. But shout out to Frank, Luke, and Bernie, and StreamYard for helping us make things like this possible.
That's awesome. And you did make that announcement, and you made a reference to it. You made an announcement on LinkedIn, and I saw it blow up, and your social channels are blowing up. People are going, "Oh my goodness, Alicia, where are you going?" So what can you tell us? Where are you going, or when are you going to make the announcement?
The announcement will come here in a few short weeks, so keep your eye open for that. I guess if I have to give a hint, I'll say it's a partner to Audinate.
Oh, I didn't know I'd be getting a hint here live on
There you go.
air.
There you go. Little hint.
Got my sleuthers out there are out there like figuring, all right, let me go find the Audinate partner list and find out who that might be.
It's quite a few, so it's pretty broad, but people might be able to take a guess.
Where are you coming to us from, Alicia? Where do you call home base?
So home base for me is technically Largo, Florida. I'm beachside of the Tampa world, kind of Bay Area, so love it here. Been here almost 3 years come April.
Largo. So you're south of Miami.
No,
Oh,
I'm northwest of Miami actually. So I'm in the Bay. To get to Miami, it's about 4 hours. It's not. I mean, it's kind of
all right.
like Texas, all those major
I
cities,
I
right?
was thinking Key Largo.
But I mean, aren't you in Florida too?
I am. I'm admitting my geographic ignorance here. So, are you are in Largo? Is that different from Key Largo?
I believe so. I have never heard of Key Largo. So
Oh.
technically, like I'm in between Clearwater and Tampa.
Oh, okay. All right. A different side of the coast.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Down southeast of Miami are the Keys, and the first key
right.
is Key Largo.
Yeah. Well, not. I'm not there. I'm
You're not
further up.
there.
No.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, some of our listeners are going to know who you are, Alicia. They're going to know, they're going to have followed you. They're going to have watched your videos and your content. And some of them may not know. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your, at a high level, how might people know of you and maybe some of your background?
Yeah, at a high level, most people know me from the content that I'm putting out, right? Whether it's my column in Commercial Integrator or the videos that I create with, the Infocom show and the E4 regional shows with Exertus Alamo, or just general AV selfies, right? Most people know me from that type of content creation that I've been doing in the industry for years. But long story short, I've been professionally in the industry officially for 10 years now. I made my 10-year mark this year, so I'm excited about that. It started with working at my father's church, running the boards at a very young age, and it growing into a full production from there, right? It started with audio. The next thing we were looking at projectors, and then we were having to get mics for the bands and all of this thing, right? It was just this full-blown production by the time I was about 16, 17. Shortly after that, we moved from my hometown up in the Connecticut area. We moved down to Houston, and somebody mentioned school to me. I was trying to get into a church, and I was like, "What? There's school for audio?" And at that time, there was only Art Institute or Full Sail, and then I found this little gym right in my backyard in Houston called Media Tech Institute. It's a certification program, so I went there and got certified. After that, I was shortly after basically a audio engineer that didn't have any more artists to record, right? Everybody was like, all right, we got to find out how to make a real living here. People were having children, we were getting older. It just wasn't
Mhm.
making sense. And that's how I found Pro AV because I got on Craigslist, typed in audio engineering, and I got a gig basically with a rental house in Houston. And I quickly found out like, okay, my idea of going on tour was not realistic because I don't like load ins and load outs. Like I didn't even like driving around Houston from place to place. There was no way I was gonna do like a worldwide tour, right? So I tried to figure out what was next, and that got me an in-house position in a multi-purpose facility where I was doing a lot of different things every day under the AV umbrella, whether that was setting up our digital signage, directing football games, running front of house audio, doing lighting for a nutcracker, setting up a banquet. It was all these different things. And it was just one big facility where we had the latest and greatest technology. So then I realized I hit a pay cap and I was never going to be my boss in like the next 10, 15 years. So I was like, what's next? And that's kind of how I found Infocom and the AV Tweeps and started going to events, putting myself out there, marrying that with content creation. And it's grown into this snowball effect that it is today.
That's amazing. Going back to the beginning, your introduction to all of this. Tell me about running the boards at your dad's church. Like, were you
Um,
this young girl out there, pushing the dials and getting everything designed and installed, or was there a team around you, or what was that like?
Nah, the team was me and my dad because he was a
You and your
sound
dad.
yeah, he was a sound guy before he took over as pastor. And we had to make it work because when we first started, we didn't have any musicians, like we didn't have too many singers either. So like it was the craziest thing. I was kind of like a DJ because I would spin up all the cues that I needed. If you ever been to a real like Pentecostal like church, they're hooping and hollering, right? That's my dad. So I
Okay.
had like this cue mixer. I would cue in all my sounds to kind of riff with them. It was pretty amazing what we could do, just the two of us together, in the software that we had at the time. And our church continued to grow from that. And it was fun because other churches would come visit our church and they say, "Oh man, your daughter and you have done some cool stuff with limited, like, how are you making those organ sounds with no organ player?" So it
Right.
led into kind of consulting at a young age. And I think that's where my love for building strategy and kind of helping people direct their own strategies and making them successful came from. Because that's what we would do. People would come into our church, see what we were doing, and they wanted to know how they can do it. Then it grew into training volunteers. It just became a full-blown production, and I fell in love with it. So we started with nothing and it grew into something really fascinating.
The school that you went to in Houston,
Mhm.
did you know what you wanted to do with that certification that you come out of? And I'm curious, I'm unaware. What was that certification, and how does it play out in the landscape of, say, Infocom certifications or other types
Mm.
of certifications in the audio or video landscape?
I mean, technically, if you look at it from the pro AV perspective, you could say that it's totally separate, right? Because it's not a CTS, but it helped me build my foundation. So the certification was in audio and engineering, but the school was a studio, right? So it taught us a lot about music. You had to find bands to record. I knew that I always wanted to be in live sound though, because that's the
Mm.
feel you get from church. It's live sound. You're creating that experience. There's nothing better to me than being behind the board and everybody's into that experience and you get goosebumps like, yeah, I'm driving this thing, right? Like that was what was fueling me. But with school, it was more about learning those technical aspects. And I think that's why that young man, when I was trying to get my first job in Houston, was like, have you gone to school? Because I couldn't talk the technical talk, but I
Right.
could feel it. Like I can hear it. I could feel it. That was my board. Like that's it. So going to school really helped me be able to build the foundation of my technical perspective for audio. And that's how it just grew over time. So shout out to that guy. I can't even remember his name, but it was important because as I grew into AV, that was my foundation to continue building my career because it was like I had the experience and then I had some type of certification to back me up. And I think our industry is built on certifications, even though it comes to and or with jobs sometimes, right? And or experience or degree. And that's what I was having trouble with early on. It was like I had the experience, but I didn't have the degree. So I was like, how can I start navigating this? So I started putting myself out there. But the certification for audio engineering, in my opinion, is more than enough to get a start in the AV industry, whether it's Resi or pro, honestly. It gives you that starting point.
Our industry, both on the pro side and the residential side,
Mm.
I believe, is having challenges or has had challenges maybe since the beginning of bringing in new talent.
Yep.
And you're an example of new talent, right? And you fell in love with music and audio and engineering at the church, and you found your way. What are you doing? I'm curious, if anything, or what do you
Mm.
think our industry should be doing to be pulling in more young talent to expose them to this world that, let's argue, most people don't know exists?
Yeah. In high schools, right? If we're looking at it from a high school level, we need to get in with those media programs, right? Most media programs are where the AV lovers live, right? Because they're doing some form of production. They're probably doing some kind of camera work. They just don't know that they can do that outside of a broadcast studio, right?
Hmm.
If we're looking at it on a higher level, we can start looking at certifications, places like Full Sail University, other areas. I think there's one that's called SEA that's actually up in Georgia, not too far from where I'm at in Florida.
Yeah.
They have an audio engineering program. Right, we need to start digging into these little holes and pockets and finding people where they are that are basically having these discussions about audio and video. They just don't know that the world of AV exists, because that's what happened to me. I
Mhm.
finished my certification program and the job board at my school was for all studio work, right? It's like, oh, go get in and become an
Oh,
intern here and run coffees. I'm like, I'm not here to run coffees. Don't get me wrong. I just knew it was going to take me a long time to be that head studio engineer, right? Because that guy's not going anywhere. He's
yeah.
been locked in for ages. So when I got on Craigslist and typed in audio engineer, you start seeing all of these kind of AV jobs, whether it's a rental company or news stations. You start getting to see a broader scope of what you can do with a certification in audio or video. And then that's how you stumble into the AV industry, like most of us have done. If we kind of reverse engineer that and go to those places that have little pockets of AV in them and let people know, hey, you could come get a job here. It might not be the passion, right? You might want to be the next Puff Daddy or whatever the case is, right? You might want to go and have your own film company. But in AV, you can get a job that funds that dream. And that's really my message when I'm putting content out to people that don't know this industry exists. That's really the goal.
Do you have the observation that the trade associations should be doing this, or is it the business owners that are listening to you and I talk here should be doing this?
I think it's a collective, right? We could always point the fingers at the association. So you guys are the ones with the trainings. We could always do that, but it's a collective effort. We're a community for a reason, right? You want new talent, go out and find them. Don't rely on the association all the time, right? I think it's a good balance beam that needs to be put in place of what's taking place in our industry. I know we do rely heavily on our associations for a lot of things, educations and things like that, but we also have a responsibility to go out and actively seek new talent ourselves as well.
Amen. And you said something profound. You said you went to the job board at the school and there was not one audio
Not one.
video company there, but yet, that would have been in
And
Houston.
this was in the heart of Houston, Texas, and
There's a ton
there was
of,
not one.
that's insane. So here you have students learning audio and video and lighting, and not one of the companies that would want those recruits actually soliciting or partnering or collaborating with that school.
Exactly.
I'm wondering if that isn't still the case today across these tech schools.
It definitely is. Because we were up in Georgia for an event, and I found a group of very diverse people, right? I was like, okay, there's all kinds of, like, it was very diverse. I'm like, where are y'all from? Like, well, how'd you get to this event? How'd you learn about it? And it was because they went to SEA Institute, and their teacher told them, hey, you can get some additional credit if you come and learn and take these Dante certifications, right? But they had no idea that the industry even existed. They had no idea. And they was like, this is great. So I spent most of my time with them talking about all these different opportunities, that's over here, because most of them were in that program because they were music producers or they were involved in photography and film. And it's like, well, hey, guess what? While you're hustling and working towards your job, look at these companies that are showcasing today, right? All of them have some part in that. Come get a job, settle in, make your parents proud, get some health care, like you can have a decent job here and focus on your dream on the side. And I think people just don't know it exists.
They don't know. I think we all, you and me and everyone listening or watching, has a responsibility to expand
Exactly
the awareness of our profession. And I think what makes our profession as exciting today as it did 23 years ago when I joined, which was there'll be more technology in our lives tomorrow than there is today. Like this stuff is not going away. We're just at the beginning of the beginning.
Yep. And it keeps evolving. And that's the exciting part of the industry, right? There's always new technology. It keeps us on our toes. There's always something new to learn. And the level of creativity that comes with designing and installing this type of technology to be useful in so many different verticals always keeps me inspired.
Somewhere along your career path, you went to Access Networks.
Yeah.
And you met a mutual friend of ours, Hagai.
Shout out to Hagai.
What's up, Hagai? All right. So tell us about what was your role like there, and tell us about that experience and about the mentorship you received from Hagai.
Ah, man, I can't speak enough about Hagai and him taking me under his wing. How I landed at Access Networks is pretty crazy because at the time I was still an end user. I think I was named 40 under 40 that year. There was just a lot going on. That was kind of like my breakout year, in my opinion. It was like people were starting to get to know who I was, and I felt like I wasn't stumbling through things anyway. I felt like I was becoming a little bit more strategic. And I told you I had hit a cap. I was never going to be my boss. So that's when I started getting out, figuring what else I can do. And people were always telling me I would be good at sales. I was like, well, I guess so. I've been selling myself this whole time. Let's see what can happen. So when CEDIA was in Dallas one year, I think this might have been like 2016, maybe. I was still an end user, but it was in my backyard. So I took time off of work. I got in my car. I drove up there, and I drove there to meet Hagai. Right? Don't get me wrong. There were some other people that I was trying to, network with and everything, but I drove there to meet Hagai. And that was the first time we had actually met in person because we were just friends on Twitter. So, we get to chopping it up and we stay connected. About 4 or 5 years later, I end up working at his company. So it was amazing. And it was a plus for me because when the network went down at our location, as an end user, we didn't know what to do, right? We had to call the school's IT team to come out, and we were talking different languages. So I was like, man, all my gear lives on the network. I need to learn networking or I'm going to be out of a job. So Access Networks seemed like the best place for me to be, not only to grow professionally, but to continue to build my technical chops as well, because Access Networks designed the greatest network systems for AV to live on, even though it wasn't in pro AV. It was the foundation of building my networking chops, and learning from that team, being a part of that team was one of the best times of my life. I was actually talking to Hagai because I won a company trip when I worked there, and it ended up being on my birthday. My birthday's next week. So it was like all of these photos popping up of Hagai and 2 other of my coworkers. We were all on the top of a mountain in Colombia on horses. Like, what? Like,
what? That sounds amazing.
Exactly. What? Yeah, it was an amazing trip. I will never forget that team. I will never forget everything that we built together. The mentorship that I received from Hagai and other members of that team is just incredible.
Well, just speaking about that word mentorship, and you see Hagai as a mentor, and for the people that are listening and watching, what should they think about in terms of their role or responsibility of mentoring others, mentoring those around them?
Always remember why you started, and always remember that what you have to add is valuable, right? Like Hagai he's super like entrepreneur, right? He's just built everything from scratch. And when I saw that in him, it was like, okay, I can do this too. So it was kind of like putting together all these things that he's done, because where I'm from, I don't know any people who have done anything remotely close to what Hagai's done. So it's like, I need to know this man. I need to know how he's building. But from reverse, right? Like there's times where I inspire him too. I push him too. And I think people look at mentoringship as, oh, I know this and this person needs to know this, right? It's not like there's a gap, like maybe I know more than you, so you need to listen. But it's really a two-way street. It's a relationship of building each other up, right? Because we all learn from each other. And I think that's why that relationship is just so good. We continue to inspire each other. And that's really what mentorship is about, inspiring each other, but also teaching each other things that we don't know.
I saw on social media, anyone that wants to go find you, I want to say maybe I saw this on LinkedIn. Hagai's new company's platform, is it Platform 5?
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's building and renovating properties, and his newest building has a training component, and he invited you and you ended up speaking. Can you tell us what was that all about?
Yeah, that space is extremely special. If you don't know Hagai, anything he touches is gold. It might not look at it as first, like that was an old auto shop. That building was an old auto shop. And what he's turned it into is just like, this vision is remarkable. But I believe the training space and the Now Community Center, which is the code name for it right now, it grew from a place of when a lot of crazy things were happening in the world in general. And on a personal level, Hagai and I were having conversations on how we can create change, right? And remove some of these barriers. And I said, well, hey, you want to create real change? We have to actively do something and not just keep talking about it, because that's what our industry loves to do. We love talking about diversity. Let's keep talking about it, raising awareness. All right, but when do we actually create change. How do we do that?
Mhm.
And a guy from our conversations, he picked that up and he put his money where his mouth was. And now there's going to be a space where children and young adults don't have those opportunities. Now they'll be able to come into that space and know about AV early,
Mhm.
right? That's how you create real change. That's how you remove barriers. You provide opportunity. And Hagai is doing that on so many different levels. So I was able to go up there, give my speech about, what the space meant to me and what it means to Hagai and what it's going to mean to that community in Easton, Pennsylvania. And I'm excited about it. So people are going to know more and more as that space continues to grow.
That's awesome. We'll put a link to Hagai's Platform 5 company. We'll put a link on the social channels and down in the show notes for sure. I want to pivot to personal branding. You're a master of personal branding. So how are you known on social media? What's your handle?
At the Smooth Factor.
The Smooth Factor. And so is that all social channels?
All social channels, pretty much, except Facebook. I haven't been on Facebook in a while.
Yeah, Facebook kicked me off. I got hacked in June of
Oh, man.
last summer, and it was not fun. It was unpleasant, and I'm admitting I personally haven't been back since June of last summer.
Yeah, as soon as my parents joined Facebook, I was out.
You're out. Yeah. There is an ageism thing about Facebook, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. I understand the value of it. It's a choice for me. Maybe I'll get back there one day, but I'm good. I'm good right now.
Where do you spend your time on social media? Like
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram. Those are my top 3.
Those are your top 3. So talk to us about personal brand, how you think about it and how you've learned to up your game. And maybe we start at the core with the why. Why work on your personal brand?
For me personally, the why was growing my career. Like I said, I was constantly going up for jobs and I would lose them because, for one, a guy was going for that role. And for 2, I didn't have a degree. I said, well, okay, if I'm constantly in your face at events, if I'm constantly in your face on social, if I'm constantly just me across the board, I'll start having to introduce myself less. And that means I have a greater opportunity to land a role and continue to grow my career. So that was my initial goal, was to keep climbing this corporate ladder. Now that I've built it to what it is today, it is still to climb, right? I've still got a lot of climbing to do. I'm not done yet, but now it's also to bring other people with me. I'm at the point where I'm on the ladder now. I could put a couple more people on my back, or tie some shirts up and throw them down, like, come on, let's do this thing, right? So I've built my platform to now where it's time to just amplify other voices and help diverse this space, or add diversity to the space. So that's my 2 purposes, right? Keep growing and bringing other people with me, and finding unique ways to tell stories about our industry so other people can find out about it, right? And join. So when you're building a personal brand, I think your why has to be extremely clear. You have to know why you're doing this, and it can't be for money, just to be honest, right? It never works out right. If you start with the passion, then everything else comes. So you have to figure out what you're most passionate about and then build the brand from there.
So anyone listening, there's a diversity of people listening. There's owners, there's managers, there's programmers, technicians, project managers, moms, dads, husbands, wives. So who should be doing this on social media, and where do you start?
In my opinion, I think everybody should doing it, right? Even if you're a stay-at-home mom, I think there is an aspect to having a personal brand that could change your life and also your children's lives, right? It creates opportunity. But from our perspective in this industry, if you want to grow in the space, become known, have your voice heard, it's so important for you to have a personal brand, especially on LinkedIn. In my opinion, if you're in Pro AV or Resi, you should be on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the number one platform to do business, right? That's the one place we all know, okay, we're not here for politics. We're not here for your moment of rant. We're all here to do business. And I think that's why LinkedIn is so powerful. It's also the less noise, right? It has Most people only use LinkedIn if they are looking for a job, which is backwards, right? If you use it to its full potential, you will receive the full potential of what that platform has to offer. And secondly, I think Twitter. Twitter is still extremely powerful. I know it's going through this weird transition right now.
It's a little funky right now,
Yeah,
post
it's
Elon.
funky. It's funky, but the community of AV people that are there, I think it's still necessary to be there unless it's completely like deteriorating your mental health.
I'm gonna pick
I
on.
think it's still good to be there.
I agree, and I use Twitter personally for my hobby. So I have
Mhm.
some hobbies, and I follow people that are within those hobbies. Um, but the algorithm stuff that Elon, and I wanted to back Elon. Everyone was beating him up. I'm like, let's give the man the benefit of the doubt. He's like a genius, modern
Yep.
day genius. Like he'll figure it out. But I'm not gonna lie. When I go to my Twitter right now, and I've been actively on Twitter for the last 2 or 3 years.
Mhm.
Just this morning, I saw, so I've heard this, I've read posts, I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I've heard people complaining about Twitter. And what I'm about to describe my experience has been is what I've been hear people complaining about.
Mhm.
And I've had a rampant amount of violent videos
Yeah.
showing up in my Twitter feed.
Yeah.
Like I just this morning, there were some people beating up a homeless man. And I'm
Yep.
like, that is like the furthest thing that I want to see in my news feed.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying it's not a real problem,
Right.
but it's something's weird and broken. And like I keep unfollow, like let me get as far away from anybody commenting, liking, or consuming this content.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, are you seeing any of that weirdness on Twitter?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of weirdness going on, and that's why I said like mentally, right? Honestly, over the last few years, I realized like my career growth and my personal growth are very much aligned. And having that kind of stuff feeding into you daily, even though you're not intentionally looking for it, it
Hmm.
takes a toll. So that's why I'm saying if it's affecting your mental, then yes, don't deal with it, right? Um, but yeah, I've started muting a lot of stuff too, unfollowing. Like I said, Twitter is in a weird, weird place right now, and I don't know if it's gonna get better or worse. But I'm willing to stick around for it because that's kind of my first touch point with AV tweets was
Yeah.
Twitter. So I've been on there for over 14 years now, so I'm trying to stick with it. Like I don't want to completely abandon it, but it is getting a little crazy over there.
All right, so well, and so I'll stay on Twitter for one more moment here. I have an opinion on this, but I want to know yours first.
Yeah.
Do you think businesses, and I think it could be argued it's different, pro business, pro AV generally, that's a B2B sale, right?
Hmm.
So that's businesses trying to solicit new business.
Right.
And then on the residential integration side, you could argue that's a little more B2C,
Correct.
right?
Hmm.
Do you think that Twitter has a role in those businesses marketing?
Absolutely.
In what way?
Absolutely.
In what way? And
So
by the way, we might agree to disagree, but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
okay. So tell me
So
what you're thinking.
the consume if we're talking B2C, the consumers are on Twitter, right? People who are looking for smart homes are there, right? They're going and actively searching this information if they're really into that particular market. I think there is space for it. Is it a huge space? Maybe not necessarily, right? But there are conversations happening there. So if you're involved with smart home technology in any kind of way, you might as well be a part of the conversation. You might as well engage. So that's my perspective on it. For B2B, I think it's a win because the people who are purchasing are there having personal conversations and businesses aren't, right? So if you're a business and you're engaging in those conversations, you automatically stand out. You're automatically building trust. You're automatically starting to build relationships. And that is a plus. Yes, it's a long game, but I still think it's extremely valuable. It's just depending on which long game you want to play, right? You can't do it on every platform. You might not be able to do it every day. And it comes down to being strategic. Where do you think you're going to get the most bang for your buck? But I think Twitter is still a valuable place,
Yeah.
but it takes time. If you haven't been there, right, it takes time. But building that trust and engaging with those people is a good way to start building.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. But I do agree that the businesses in our industry are evaluating. They need to evaluate what are they trying to get out of a marketing strategy.
Exactly.
And within that, then what are the tactics they're going to employ? And where does Twitter fit into that? And I would say of the social channels, LinkedIn should probably be close to the top, if not the top.
Right.
Residential, maybe Instagram.
Yep.
And
But
commercial.
most businesses, right, when they say, "Oh, we need to start doing social," it's like, okay, why? Most of them are just doing social for the sake of
They're
doing it to
busy
say,
to,
"Here, I'm on it," right? But that's backwards. That's a waste of time.
Yes.
That's not the way to go about it. So they really have to sit back and assess like the why. And then once you know the why, you could pick out which platform is best, right? And then you can start building that out to where it's not just posting for the sake of posting. That doesn't work.
That doesn't. All right. Well, let's dive into, and we'll stay for a moment on personal brand. Then we'll pivot to business.
Yeah.
But on LinkedIn, what are the types of content that you find yourself producing and you find good engagement, and or what are the types of content that you like to engage with?
Yeah.
As it relates to people and kind of letting the world know who you are and what you stand for.
What type of content? Videos.
Okay, let's
Yeah,
go. Well, most people are scared of video. So what
but
type
you
of
don't
video?
you don't have to be, face forward on a video, right? There's so many different ways you can do video. It just has to be creative.
Okay, give us some examples.
Examples. Okay, are we talking about business or are we talking about like personal branding?
Personal branding.
Personal branding. If you are not willing to be the person on the camera, then show behind the scenes shots. That's how I started, right? All right. Well, these people don't know me. No, let me not show my face yet. But you guys know this amazing audio console, don't you? Yeah, it's the latest and greatest. You love it. Like it, like it, like it, like it. That's what started it, right? People didn't know me, but they knew the gear. So I started talking about the gear I was using. And then the camera slowly turned around, right? Because as an end user, I was used to being behind the camera, right? I'm the one capturing, I'm the one creating the experience. So it was a slow transition for me to get on camera. If you don't like being on camera, do something behind the scenes, right? If you work in a warehouse, show me what gear showed up.
Well, let's help me and help our audience get comfortable with being on camera. Do they need hair and makeup to be on camera?
No.
What do they need?
If to be on camera.
By the way, I didn't have any hair or makeup today before we went live.
Same. To be on camera, you need to smile. Honestly, if that's the first thing, like just be a friendly face. Don't overthink it. That's why people don't start, right? They're like, oh, my lighting doesn't look as good as Ron's. My lighting doesn't look as good as Ron's right now. So what? That doesn't mean you can't start, right? You have to just do it, right? Start with a smile, figure out what you want to talk about, and just start. Like, just do it. It's going to be very uncomfortable, but that's how I've grown to this point, is by getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's like just jumping off the cliff. You got to do it.
That's my mantra, Alicia. That is being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And as soon as I find myself, and I tell my team this as well, I tell my son this, I tell the kids I mentor this, as soon as you find yourself feeling really good and comfortable, you know you need to go change something.
Yeah, you gotta get on to the next thing.
Because you're not growing if you feel comfortable.
Right. So once you get okay with being uncomfortable, that's when the strokes of genius actually start happening, right? And it doesn't always have to be this big, beautiful packaged thing all the time. As long as you're adding value, right? That's why I said start and know exactly what you want to talk about, right? Have 3 pillars. 3 pillars of things that are in your wheelhouse of what you want to talk about and add value to a conversation about.
What are your 3 pillars?
My 3 pillars are networking, events, and technology.
And so how do you think about that framework? Everything you produce is in one of those buckets?
Is in one of those buckets.
That's interesting. And what frequency should someone, and we're staying on LinkedIn for a moment, we're staying on personal branding. Is there a right quantity of pieces of content to produce?
I'm not sure about right quantity, but for me, like the frequency that has been showing true from consistent is at least 3 posts a week. I started with 1 post a week, then it grew to 2 posts a week, then 3 posts a week. Some people post twice a day on LinkedIn, right? That didn't work for me. I don't know, the algorithm just didn't like it. You have to figure out what works for you, but I think you should be on LinkedIn at least 3 times a week.
I was talking, I'm in a marketing mastermind with some other marketing agency owners, and they were educating me. I'll give you the very short version. So we're hiring for an SEO consultant here at
Mhm.
One Firefly. We want someone to evaluate everything we're doing, tell us what we're doing right, tell us what we're doing wrong. And so I'm going to leverage LinkedIn and the
Yep.
world out there to seek people that want to participate in our RFP
Okay.
for that role. And so I was going to my masterminders and I said, so I'm going to post the thing and I want you guys and gals to share it. And they're like, Ron, that's so LinkedIn yesterday. That's not how you get. I'm like, oh boy, how do I get the engagement?
Yeah.
And they said, people, you want us to comment on
Yep.
your post. And
Because
so
that's where the
if
reach
anyone
comes.
goes and finds my LinkedIn today, you'll find that I'm old school. So I shared Kendall from my team's post, but all of the people that I want to get into their networks, they kindly went into my video or actually into my post and they started commenting.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so have you found that to be the case of getting expanded reach on your content is the engagement, the commenting game?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm not this big influencer, right? I'm technically considered a micro influencer, but that is the name of the game as a micro influencer. I might not have the max amount of followers, right? But my engagement is there. And that is the key to it. It doesn't matter how many followers you have. You want people to be engaging with you. And that is how you expand the reach on a platform like LinkedIn, right? So when I started doing LinkedIn about 3 years ago, I was commenting and posting, engaging and then posting. Like, you can't just post, nobody's going to see it. You have to do both actively. They go hand in hand.
So what's your advice for anyone that is wanting to increase maybe the impressions of their brand, their person, their content? Is it that they need to be going into LinkedIn and making, 1 or 2 comments or engagements for everything they post? Or is it 5? Is it 10? Is there any right number or right way to think about this from your opinion or just your experiences?
From my experiences, what I did is always look for the AV tweets, and we're in AV, right? So go to LinkedIn in the search, type in hashtag AV tweets, check that post out, right? And don't just leave comments with emojis, right? You have to leave comments that add value, that are
Mm.
adding to the conversation, right? Saying I love this is not good enough. Why do you love it? Engage with that person. Like, don't just comment because you're trying to get more reach. You really have to engage. So engage with posts that pull at your heartstrings. Engage with a post with some technology that you've been using and add your opinion into the comment section. Engage with people that are at an event that you have maybe not have been to but want to go to, right? You were just at BLC, weren't you?
No, I had 2 members of my team that were there, Jessica and Tori.
Right. I'd never been, right? But I knew a couple of people who were there. I'm liking their posts. I'm like, man, that's great. Congratulations on your award. I've never been to BLC before, but I hear it's amazing. Please let me know how it was, right? Have conversation. Don't just comment to comment. That doesn't work. You really have to drive a discussion.
Now pivot that to business. So
Mm-hmm.
businesses, AV Tweeps, the
Mm-hmm.
businesses out there in our channels, Resi and commercial, how should they be leveraging
Same
LinkedIn?
way. Same way. Posts, right, on your company page, but every company has partners, whether it's a reseller, an integrator, a manufacturer partner. Leverage each other's network, comment, engage, say, oh, we're so happy that this new product released. You can also get it here. Have questions about this product. Our experts can handle that, right? You actively need to engage. It's not just about posting. And that is like what's gotten me to this point is the level of engagement, driving conversations, and also being willing to learn from people saying, oh, when did this come out? How do you like it so far? I might want to use this in the future, right? It's all about discussion, engagement, and building relationships.
Do you believe that architects, designers, builders, developers, consultants, executives at Fortune 500, the people that matter to the integrator for future lead gen or projects, do you believe they're on LinkedIn?
Yes. And even if they're not active, they're lurking. It's that platform is so valuable. Like, they are there. They are there. And don't just use it as a sales tool, right? Everybody started doing this about 3 years ago. In mailing people with just spam, spam, spam. That was the new thing. That's why some people left LinkedIn. They're like, "Oh, I get too much sales spam." Like, if you're going to reach out in a direct message, do a little research, right? Don't send the same cold sale email to everybody. Do a little research. Find something that stands out to you. Say, "Oh, I saw that you were at this event last week. My team was there as well. Hate we didn't get to meet. Maybe we can schedule a meeting," right? Don't do this spammy type stuff, because they get that all day. But are they there? Yes.
Awesome. Mindful of time, let's pivot to Instagram.
Instagram.
What's the role of Instagram in your personal brand? And so I'm gonna ask a predecessor question. Do you think that a business Instagram page should be different than your personal brand, your Instagram page? Should you be posting as a person on behalf of your company, or should there be separation of church and state?
It depends on your role, right? If I'm a business,
Mhm.
then I'm going to be posting about my business, right? But as a personal brand, Instagram is the space where you can find out a little bit about my personal life and what I do at work, right? That's the place to leverage both things outside of work and work. Now, the hard part is finding that balance. That's the hard part. And that's something that I've struggled with Instagram, especially all the changes they've had over the last year with
Mhm.
Meta buying them and Reels coming out, and it
Stories
transitioned.
and
Yeah, stories, and it transitioning from just a photo place to now all video, right? They've had all these changes. So I've personally struggled with Instagram, but
yeah.
it's that one platform where it is a bit of personal and business, right? LinkedIn is all business most of the time. Twitter is mostly the AV tweet community business events. But LinkedIn is where you're going to see me and my partner. You might see my dogs. You might see me at Infocom, and then you're going to see my dinner, right? Like, that's the place to kind of do that. But if you're a business, then it has to be solely about the business. If you are looking to grow your personal brand and you work for a business, there is a way to marry that, but there is a very fine line there.
I agree. So my strategy, personal strategy, is my personal Ron Callis Instagram
Mhm.
it's me, my family, my hobbies, my projects, my dog, a lot of pictures of my son. That's what goes on my personal Instagram.
Right.
Little to no One Firefly content. I mean, it'd be very rare. Maybe if I'm standing on stage for some event, I think it's a particularly good picture of me standing on
Yeah.
stage, then I'm like, all right, I'll post it over there.
Right.
But it's not because I'm soliciting business from it. It's just like, hey, there's my job, and I on occasion stand on stage, and I think it's a good picture. So there you go. It's on
There
my
you go.
Instagram.
Yeah.
But my One Firefly Instagram, that's my worky work.
Mhm.
That's where, and that's actually managed in-house. I'm an administrator on that. I will on occasion post stories or post reels or make organic posts on the feed, but that's being managed by our corporate marketing team against a social calendar and a strategy of what type of content we want to put up there.
Yeah.
Um, but that's how I manage it to
Mhm.
answer. So my fine line is, I said, I'm not good at doing the fine line.
Yeah, you said, "I'm not gonna do it." Yeah.
I'm
You
gonna
either
separate
you
it.
either walk the tightrope or you don't. And I mean,
Yeah.
you made the choice, so that's what it is now. But people know One Firefly because of you, right? I knew you before we even met. I knew you before I technically knew what One Firefly was. So it is a fine line, but hey, you made the better choice. You said this is One Firefly, and you can drive people to that from other platforms. Maybe not necessarily Instagram, which is cool. But,
Right.
you have other platforms that you utilize where you're walking that line, like LinkedIn.
Exactly. It's Ron, the person that's all
Mhm.
about work and industry and
Right.
and
It's a
growth in that
balance.
regard.
It's a balance.
It is. In terms of Instagram, I have an observation that most integration firms, Resi or Pro,
Mhm.
underutilize the platform and often misuse the platform in terms of not engaging with architects, designers, builders, developers, and important
Mhm.
stakeholders in
Yep.
terms of the engagement side. As the brand, I see them often not doing that. I see them often not. If you look at Instagram as a platform that has the potential to increase the exposure of your brand,
Right.
you could do that by effective, smart use of hashtags and hashtag strategies that would affect your orbit or
Yep.
put you into the orbit of communities that you'd want to be aware of your brand. And
But
I don't see that happening often.
but it's because AV doesn't do social well.
Yeah.
Like as a whole, right? There's a group of us that do it, and then as an industry overall, though, most of the people in this space don't do social well.
Mhm.
And when it comes to Instagram, it's very much video driven now. Most of our industry doesn't do video well. Like they haven't grasped the full concept when it comes to ROI, why they need to invest in it and play a long game when it comes to social and creating content. Half of the industry still doesn't get it. And that's why people aren't leveraging it.
Does that change, Alicia? What's going to have to happen for that to change, or does it ever change?
It will change over time as new blood infuses into our industry. That's just all it is. Cuz right now, I hate to say this, but it's still this phrase. This is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
This is the way we always done it. Because the people that are in this space have been doing it for 30 years. They've been running their companies and they're going to pass it down to their kids and right? That is the model. We've always done it this way. Why change it, right? I don't know. We just came back from a crisis, right? Everything stopped. Why don't we try something different? And if you can't answer that question, then I know you're not ready. That's companies that I just won't work with.
I want to close, at least for our chat today. I know we both have hard stops in about 7 minutes.
Yeah, we're good.
What has you most excited about the year ahead?
What has me most excited about the year ahead? Infocom.
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 And maybe the announcement you're going to make in 10 days.
Yep, the announcement that's coming in 10 days. These regional events, right? Getting back out and just hanging out with people, doing a little dancing, seeing some technology, and just having engaging conversations. I work from home, so getting out and actively having a couple of drinks with people I love and hanging out, that's what keeps my spirits lifted in this industry because it's challenging. It's challenging. Some days I'm like, I want to quit all of this crap. Screw it,
Screw it. Yeah.
But so I'm excited to get back on the road. Next week we'll be in Dallas for the E4 Exertis Alamo show. Absolutely excited about that. Big announcement coming in 10 days. So this is the first time I have a little break in between jobs, right? I usually leave one and start the next one. I actually have some breathing room. So
What are you doing during your hiatus here? What are you doing to
So
relax?
I went to the beach this week. Okay.
I
went
mean,
to the
other
beach
than joining
midday.
this podcast, which was clearly the highlight of the week.
I'm hanging out with you. Did a couple of podcast recordings this week, which is stuff that I love, right? I love engaging, I love talking, I love learning from people and just having genuine good conversation. And then next week, again, we'll be in Dallas. My birthday's on Monday. After the show, I'm gonna drive down and see my parents and my nephew. So I'm gonna get a little rest. It's gonna be nice just to do no work after the 8th. Because I'm not gonna lie, I have been working, juggling all the other things that I do. But come the 8th, it's all family time. I'm gonna get some rest and regroup and get focused on what's next.
We bring our best selves to the game when we allow ourselves some downtime.
I've just now started learning that. I'm all about the grind. I'm all about the hustle. And I find myself struggling with that now that I've grown into, you know, everything that it is today. Like me as a person, I have always had this survivor mentality. You gotta hustle, you gotta get it. If you don't, you don't eat. If you don't, you don't got no. And now I'm kind of like in this weird phase where it's like, am I start panicking, and then I realize I'm panicking for no reason, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm happy to have a little bit of breathing room these next few days. But I'm also excited about what's next.
Congrats about taking that transition smartly and giving
I
yourself some
appreciate
breathing
that.
room. That's I know that's good for your family, and it's good for your mental health,
Yes.
and it's going to empower you to bring that much more of your A game when you restart your next adventure. So
Thanks, Ron. Thanks. I appreciate that.
good on you. I look forward to hanging out with you in a couple of months. That'll be June Infocom, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a good one. I'm happy to be back in Florida. It's
Yeah.
gonna be good.
That's going to be down the street from you. That's what, an hour. It's going to be in O-Town.
Yep. Yep. So it's backyard, biggest event of the year. In my playbook anyways. Outside of the regional shows I do with Xerius Alamo. But it's the one big one that we're always focused on right after it ends. At the end of June, me and my team are always planning for that show again, right? It's just a heavy
Wow.
hitter that we're going into hard every time.
And for clarity, for my clarity in our audience, you're going there as a content creator, and that hat you wear, or is it you're going there on behalf of maybe some entity that you might be a part of?
Both.
Both. Look at
Yep.
that.
Both.
See, folks, I tried to get a little bit more of the goods out of her. She's not letting it loose.
Not letting it loose just yet.
Not yet. Not yet. All right, Alicia. Well, I appreciate you. We're going to sign off for now. Anyone that wants to follow you, maybe give all the handles. How can people follow you on the socials?
Yeah, at the Smooth Factor. You can just go to Google, type in at the Smooth Factor, pick your platform of choice. My website is thesmoothfactor.com. And of course, well, on LinkedIn, it's my government name, Alicia Henley.
Your government name.
My government name. It's funny because people walk up to me and say, "Oh, the Smooth Factor," but I mean that's something that I'm the only one. You're not going to find another Smooth Factor.
Yeah, no, you're the only one. You're the only one. Alicia, appreciate you for joining me. I think this was we moved the numbers around. This was show 238. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Ron.
Awesome. Great to have you. All right, folks, there you have it. Show 238, Automation Unplugged. That was a lot of fun. What a great way to spend a Friday afternoon. I hope that you found this interruption in your normal flow today fun and interesting. Alicia's a rock star. She has so many brilliant ideas, such a fun personality. And I think what I appreciate most is she's so willing to share and to give back to the community, our community, the community that we're building and have built our careers in. So on that note, I'm going to sign off. And we'll see you on upcoming shows of Automation Unplugged. Just stay tuned. We're balancing and juggling lots of trade shows and lots of activities. So we may be moving the show around to different days and times. But if you always want to check out what we've created, go over to the YouTube channel at One Firefly. Go over to the One Firefly LinkedIn. And you can also always download or subscribe to the podcast, Automation Unplugged. You'll find us on all of the normal channels. So appreciate you all. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.